Where's the wee thing? There we go. Okay, so thank you, Tom, for inviting me to talk about Homes for Good and what's been happening with us. I know that some of the folks that are on the call will know about Homes for Good a fair bit, so I will try and be concise so as not to bore you, but there is, for those of you that have maybe not been familiar with us, I'm happy to follow up with lots and lots of information if you want it later. What I'm going to do is just really cover very briefly who Homes for Good is, why we exist and what we're trying to do, and then specifically talk about how we've responded and what we've seen happening during the COVID situation and the crisis that has created for many of our tenants and how we've responded to that, and then just a little bit about what we think the way ahead might look like and what we're planning for. So really just to start, Homes for Good is often called a social letting agency, but that's a little bit of a misnomer. We're a letting agency that works across the private rented sector, but we're a social enterprise. So really that's around us making a very clear statement that we are ethical, that our profits are reinvested in our social aims. And those aims, there are three main aims around Homes for Good, and I set Homes for Good up in 2013 as an unhappy landlord who was really dissatisfied with the quality of service that I had from the letting agents that I was working with. So I'm an experienced private rented sector landlord, have been for about 20 years, but also with a real commitment. You know, my day job over those years was working with people in quite marginalised communities in Glasgow and working from a sort of personal development and community development perspective. So I've sort of married both of the things together. So our aims are here, they're very clear. First and foremost is to raise standards of quality of property and management within the private rented sector. Now, as we all know, it's huge. No one organisation is going to do that alone. So we also from the outset built in an aim to lead by example. And that's what, so we talk about what we do things differently. And we make sure that we're able to communicate that to people so that we have a ripple effect, so that in other parts of the country, other people are maybe looking at what we do and learning from it and adopting rather some of our practices. And then the third aim of ours, which is very important and probably the focus of what I'm going to talk about, is increasing access for people who are in low incomes to quality homes within the private rented sector. And the word home is really important in that. And that was really in response to what I could see happening as a disgruntled landlord, but also seeing how my tenants and the wider tenants in the private rented sector were treated sometimes. I put this up. This is not our mission statement per se, but it's basically what we believe every day, and everything we do comes back to this, that home is the foundation for all of our lives. And our view is that if we can play our part in making somebody's home safe and secure and somewhere that they love, then the other parts of their life, you know, they can hopefully fit together and they can progress. As a letting agent, there are a number of things that we do as a letting agent, but what makes us different from, you know, apart from the ethical approach and the values-led approach. I'm just having a wee look because I think my slides have jumped. I'm just going to flick through. There are some slides missing here. Can I just, Tom, would you be okay if I just go back, stop sharing and see where those other slides are? Because I'm quite keen that folks see them. Is that okay? Can I do that? Yeah. Let me just see where they are. Yeah, okay. I'm going to share the screen again. I've had a malfunction, which is So you're going to miss some of the images of what we do. So I'm going to just go back a little bit. I think when I was just finalising the slides earlier on, there was something wrong with my, the mouse on my laptop, and I think it's deleted a few of the slides, and I've not spotted that before I uploaded it. So I'll just go back to what we are as a letting agent. So what comes on after our aims is also just really what our values are, and we all of our business is value driven, and it's around being kind, being friendly, being fair, quality, and expertise. There are 5 values, and being kind and friendly and fair are the most important ones, really, in my view. Quality and expertise are things you can learn, but actually the way that you treat people and the way that you behave is the most important thing. And this applies to the way that we work with our tenants. So our view is that tenants are the primary customer. So landlords are offering their homes for management or the properties for management, but tenants are the primary customer. And if we work with a tenant well and they're treated well as customers, the landlords will benefit automatically. What makes us particularly different is the work we do around working with people on low incomes and in receipt of housing benefit. And going back to the tenant being the primary customer, this whole concept of loving your home is central to what we're all about. So we have incorporated from an early stage into Homes for Good, we incorporated a tenancy support function, which really responds. My colleague talks about it, about what we do as getting to know our tenants and flowing around them. So whether that be a young working professional that's in quite a high value property in the West End of the city, or a very vulnerable person who's come out of homelessness into working with us with complex needs, we respond to them as human beings and work with them to support them to be safe within their homes. This said, do you take DSS? This is the sort of $1 million question in the private rented sector, and it was one that just comes up all the time when you're working with people who are trying to rent properties at the lower end of the market. They say this with fear in their voice, and we were very proud from the beginning to say, of course we do, how can we help you? But this whole barrier that there is to within the private rented sector to a reluctance for letting agents and landlords to work with people in receipt of housing benefit was a real driver for this sort of next stage of our growth in our business. And so what we did was we decided to create our own portfolio of homes. So we've almost created a sort of social private tenure, if you like, and we raised investment. We raised just under £12 million, and we have bought and renovated just under 250 homes since in the last 6 years, really, to rent out to people that are accessible for people that are on housing benefit or on quite low incomes. So it's almost a positive, or it is a positive discrimination to ensure. I like to think that we're competing with the bottom of the market, and doing it in a really, really high quality way. These were the investors who have so far backed us to do that. So as well as us managing properties, around 250 properties for landlords within the Greater Glasgow area, we also own about the same number ourselves. And all we really do is identify the properties, renovate them and furnish them, which I'm going to go on to show you, and then let them to people that are in real housing need at around about the LHA level, so that they're affordable. And once those properties are ready, we then manage them within the letting agency with the appropriate levels of tenancy support. Just going to flick through some of the before and afters. This is a before. This is what the property became. Was let out to somebody who'd been sleeping rough, who's now been in that property for 8 months. This is another one. And that is the kitchen before and after, and that is now a family with 4 children who live in that property. In terms of what's happened with COVID, we sort of responded to COVID slightly earlier than the official guidelines, and we saw it coming, and we just moved very quickly. We were fortunate that because of the way that we operate, in terms of just everything is managed on sort of property management software on the cloud, all of our team have laptops and iPhones, we were able to go to remote working straight away. We had to furlough some of our lettings and repairs team because the activity just physically stopped overnight, and certainly from a repairs perspective, they physically couldn't do any work, which meant that they couldn't generate any income. So we had to furlough about a third of our team. We operated. I think, as everybody has said throughout this crisis, the quality of communication is key, and so we communicated in the early stages very quickly and very regularly with our landlords and our tenants, and we homed right in on our tenants' welfare as being the most critical thing that we had to oversee throughout this situation. Firstly, around their mental health, and we have about 2/3 of our tenants are in receipt of housing benefit, and a fairly big number of them have got existing mental health conditions. So we knew that there was going to be some real critical support we needed to provide. And we also knew that we could see from analysing who our tenants were, that there was probably about 52% of our tenants were at risk of losing their jobs just by the nature of how they were employed. So we focused and ever since we've been really focusing on tenant welfare pretty closely. And we developed a mechanism, we call it the COVID tracker, that has enabled us to see exactly what is going on at any given time with our tenants, whether they had symptoms of COVID, whether they were isolating, whether they needed food, whether they needed support with universal credit claims, and whether everything was okay. And we're able to measure that on a daily basis, and it lets us see the change in all of our tenant circumstances as things progress. We also, as many other organisations and businesses, have accessed sort of the supports and grants that were available to keep us afloat where we thought we might be losing income. In terms of what's happened in the last 3 months, we have focused a lot. We've got all of our team working remotely, so we've done a lot of work around tenant welfare, employee welfare, which is everything from having mental health support and counselling in place if people need it, right through to nonsense on a Friday with Friday Fizz, just as to keep us all together. We have actually created 50 new tenancies in the last 3 months, which were really predominantly around working with agencies to create homes for people who were in an emergency situation, and quite a number of essential moves for key workers and different folks. We also expanded our services. We have in our tenancy support team, we've got a full-time universal credit officer who's become very busy, and we decided to expand our sort of advice and support to tenants and landlords in the wider PRS community in Scotland to help them. What we also found was that despite the fears that we potentially had about how our tenants might cope and what might happen to them, we have had minimal increases in actual rent arrears. And I think that is predominantly down to this proactive work that we've done with tenants and the existing relationships that we had with them, so that we were able to help them very quickly and sort things out if they found that they were struggling. And that has been really valuable for our tenants, because contrary to what you sometimes see in landlord world, no tenant wants to be in arrears. It's a source of real stress for them. So the fact that we've been able to support and manage our tenants is something I'm particularly proud of. We have also very much increased our tenant support and engagement, and this is probably where the fun starts. We have a programme already where we do interior design with our tenants so that they can make their properties a home, something that is, I know that Kim is looking at this, Kim McKee's looking at this, and we really live and breathe this, that a private rented sector home property should be a home. So we've continued to do this sort of work remotely with our interior designer, sending materials to tenants and showing them through video how to do certain things. We've run competitions on what home means to our tenants, and this is one of the winning entries. So we are focusing very much on how we can help our tenants feel at home in a place that they need to be all the time at the moment. We've been running art workshops for our tenants' children, which has created respite, lots of entertainment for the children, but importantly respite for the parents. And that is now, it probably has just finished actually. It's a weekly, twice weekly class that happens on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And 3 times a week we do afternoon tea. And tomorrow, and that's for our more isolated tenants, and we do that via Zoom. And tomorrow, they don't quite know it yet, but they are getting deliveries actually of afternoon teas from us, so that when they come onto the Zoom call, we can all have a special treat. In terms of what's next for us, obviously things are not going to be the same for a very, very long time, if ever again. And so we are constantly looking at what's going on in the environment and trying to just think, what does that mean for us? What does the change in the property market mean for us? What does all of the different sort of situations that are going on, how is that going to apply to Homes for Good? We've decided to redesign the business. We were already in the process of starting to document all the different ways that Homes for Good works, because we are hoping to replicate the model in other parts of the UK. But we have taken this opportunity now to look specifically at exactly how we can do this, how we can incorporate virtual work, and the things that we've had to do out of necessity in the last 3 months. So there's quite a lot of that is actually a service improvement, and we want to keep that. One of the things that I want to do is, and we are going to do it, I just need to work out exactly how and the cost associated, is create a digital by default approach, which I'm hoping we will be able to roll out in the next 3 months. We've already started to get funding to do this. So I want broadband to become a utility, so that all of the homes that we manage have broadband that is affordable. Where possible in our own properties, we will include that in the rent. And we are in the process of doing an audit with all of our tenants about how digitally literate they are, what support they need to access different programs, and whether we need to get maybe tablets, particularly for some of our more vulnerable tenants, so that they can communicate with us. And I think the other things that are here, we fully expect, we had a first wave of universal credit work that we needed to do at the beginning of March, and we fully expect, unfortunately, that there could be more of that coming when the furlough starts to tail off and employers are facing the economic reality of what may be happening with them. So we are geared up for supporting our tenants to be able to respond quickly and enable them to feel safe. And with colleagues in crisis and other organisations, we are working hard to find ways of making the PRS accessible to meet for people in low incomes, to meet demands of all of the sort of the move for people coming out of the hostels and the hotels. There's not enough social housing, so we need to find ways for the private rented sector to become accessible and safe for those folks as well. So that is a race through what Homes for Good is. I am really sorry about the beginning of the slides, that's annoying, with some fabulous pictures there, but hopefully that's just giving you a flavour of who we are, what we've seen happening in the last 3 months, and where we think we're going.